Okay. All right. Okay, so let me just get started here. So this is the May 17th meeting of the Lake Boone Commission, and it is 6:30, and we are going to start the meeting. I'll first go quickly through the agenda, and then we'll start right in with our two special guests today, and we'll go from there. So first of all, our first thing is on the agenda will be for an update from the Stow Police around the Lake Boone Safety Patrol and plans for this year and the boat and all of that. We're very excited to have both Mike here and also Jeff, who will get introduced by Mike relative to his new role. We'll have time for public comment after that, and we'll try to move through things quickly so that if there is public comment other than questions you might have from specifically from the first agenda item, which I suspect we'll address at during that item. If there's something that comes up during public comment, if we can get that in before 7, then Mike might be able to hear it. If not, I don't know. We'll see if Jeff can stay on a little longer or not, but we'll front end that also. And then we have the Laura Greeno also on for the Stow Rec Commission to kind of go back to the request around the boat rentals for this year. We do have some bills, meeting minutes to approve, bills to pay. We will talk a little bit around our budget, where that stands, an update on the weed treatment, which took place last month, and a bit of a discussion around the Healthy Lake Boone initiative and the results of that and some of the recommendations that have been coming out of that. So we'll have that. A little business around where we are with our boat, motor, if we're going to want to move forward with RFP for motor replacement, buoys, other stuff kind of in preparation for the season, which seemed to have started already this weekend, this past weekend with the summer weather. Then we'll have old business, new business, and the date of the next meeting. And that will hopefully wrap us up. So I want to start out. First of all, thank you very much, Mike and Jeff, for being with us. And Mike, you want to maybe do introductions there, and then just whatever you would like to cover for us.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I pretty much know everybody on the call, but for those of you who don't know me, I am Michael Scalisi. I'm the chief here in Stow. And I appreciate you giving me a couple of minutes here and hopefully answer all your questions on what's going to happen this summer. So last year, with the retirement and aging out of Lee Heron, that left us an opening and an opportunity to hire an individual that is going to be replacing him. We were able, over the course of a few months, we were able to advertise starting the end of December, posting for the position, and based on new police reform, the availability of candidates have to have a full-time or equivalent full-time police academy to actually exercise police powers. Now there are no such thing as reserve training anymore. So that limited our pool. We received around 20 position candidates who were interested in the position, and they were submitted and reviewed by my advisory board. It was made up of 2 sergeants, a dispatch supervisor, and actually we had Lee Heron on the hiring committee as well. I thought his knowledge would add value and help us employ someone who is proper for the lake. They looked at everybody, they interviewed, and then they submitted a couple candidates to us. We interviewed those candidates, and the top candidate was Jeff Beckwith, and he is currently a full-time fire lieutenant with the Framingham Fire Department with over 17 years experience. He has 7 years of police experience working as a part-time officer for many different communities. His flexibility on the fire department, his time work schedule will ensure that he's able to cover the weekends and holiday shifts as required by us. Not only is he going to be able to handle our Lake Boone Patrol, but he's also going to be able to supplement our full-time officers as well. So that's a little bit about Jeff. He can talk more about himself and you can ask him some questions directly in a minute. As far as the Lake Boone patrol goes this summer, typically what we do is on the weekend and have weekend patrols. We're going to continue those as well as some weekday patrols too. I'm going to talk with Jeff shortly this week or next week about what his schedule will look like. The holidays will be covered, and where he can't cover, like Lee couldn't cover, we would actually be supplementing that with full-time officers. Not only that, we're looking at after July 1, due to this budget, we were able to get some funding for the police boat through our operating budgets. We are going to rebrand the Stow police boat, get new different lights, a new engine, and new wording on the side. That's going to enable 3 different departments to be able to use that. It's a public safety boat. It's going to be able to be primarily used by the police department, the fire department if needed, or the rec department if needed. They'll be the adults that are trained on it from the rec department that meet our criteria, which is boat training as well as the mass environmental police training. They will be able to utilize that during the week when we're not using it. However, if a priority comes in that we need it, we immediately take over. The lights on the boat are going to be different. They're going to have 3 different color choices: yellow, red, and blue. Just depending on which agency is using it, which department, then they'll get the opportunity to use those colors. Obviously, you know, I like blue, but that's just personal opinion for me. But the rec department could use yellow if they have to go after somebody for that didn't return a kayak and they're still out there and they're just closer to like Basin 2 or Basin 3. So that's an opportunity that we've never had before. And I'm glad that we were able to provide that opportunity to the rec department as well as our fire department too. And we can get some cross training going on with them as well. So that was a quick synopsis of what is going on. I know you have a full agenda tonight, so I wanted to give people an opportunity to meet Jeff, give him 5 minutes to introduce himself and then ask any questions.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to meet you and be a part of this. Thank you, Chief, for the introduction. As he mentioned, I've been involved in public safety for a long time. I started out early 2001 when I became an EMT and moved up through the fire service and became involved in law enforcement. I've had a boat with some experience for years up on Lake Winnipesaukee, which I sold my boat a couple of years ago, so I've been missing it. And I think this is providing me with an opportunity to combine 2 things. I love interacting with people. I love the law enforcement and I love being on the water. So I look forward to seeing you all out there. If I can answer any questions, please feel free.
Excellent. Well, welcome, Jeff, and you do have big shoes to fill, and Lee's had been around for a long time, and it was a big part of our community. So but welcome, and we're excited to have you joining.
Well, thank you very much.
So I'm going to start with questions from the commissioners, and then if time permitting, we will open it up to other folks as we go. So, yes, Conrad.
So, Mike, first of all, thank you for all that work to find Jeff. Jeff, where do you live?
I live in Framingham, close to the Sudbury line.
Okay, so not too far away from the lake.
No.
That's good. Excellent. Yeah, I'd like to meet you sometime. I'm sure that Mike has told you the LBC also has a boat.
Yep.
And in an emergency situation, it's probably closer to your house than the Stow boat is. We'll talk about that when we get a chance. So welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Excellent. Dan, you had a question?
Yeah, first of all, I want to echo the thanks both to Mike and to Jeff. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate your hard work, Mike, and your engagement in the community, Jeff. I think Conray is probably a little bit too modest. He's been handling the Stow, the Lake Boone Commission boat for years. In fact, originally donated it and it has had a significant presence on the lake. I think it will be important for you and Conray to develop a good working relationship. I know he and Lee had that, and I think, just to be clear about that. I use a kayak and I haven't yet gotten onto the powerboat, although I've started taking lessons because I know it's important for me to have that certification. But I'm wondering, is it possible for me to go along with you sometime if you're out doing a patrol and, just to get on the boat with you? Is that, maybe it's a question for Mike, whether that's legal. And second, Jeff, excuse me, to you, whether that would be okay with you.
So I'll answer that first because I know Jeff would be is starting to learn our rules and regulations. But it's on a case-by-case basis. We have allowed senior elected officials and appointed officials on our official boats, and that would, for me, it would be okay. And so I would give permission to Jeff to do that as long as he felt comfortable with that. It's like doing a ride along in a cruiser. The certain restrictions that we would put on somebody if, with Lee and with Jeff, I expect a lot of response. If they're out on patrol and there's a situation going on where they can access that emergency from the boat, such as, let's say, a medical emergency or a domestic or some other law enforcement interaction needed, they're going to respond from out in the lake to those addresses that are around the shore. So sometimes we may just be like, okay, we're going to dump, if you're on the boat with Jeff, we may say, okay, we're going to stop here, you get out, now we're going to keep going, because we don't want to put you in a situation where you're not trained or are in harm's way. So those are liability things that we could talk about, but I wouldn't have a problem in the end.
And it
In other
works
words,
for me.
Dan, they're gonna,
So that's okay with you, Jeff?
Yes, obviously anything that the chief approves, I'm okay. I love working with people, so I have absolutely no problem with that.
Yeah, and it might make sense, Conray, you've done this with many people before, is to give Jeff, a ride around the lake in general, in the LBC boat, and then that eliminates that, kind of issue. But just to, explain what things are, where our trouble spots often are, those kinds of things, that might be really helpful.
More than happy to do that. And, I've got my own boats in the water. So Jeff, we can also take our pontoon boat out to go look at the lake. So we can do that anytime you want.
Sounds good to me. I'll be in touch.
Good. We'll get you my phone numbers offline.
Okay.
So the other thing I wanted to mention is that, I think Mike has really modeled this. It's important to engage with the community. You're not just there as an enforcement officer, you're there as a member of the community. Conray is certainly a good model for that, but I think you'll end up seeing that we have what might be grouped as three different types of people you're going to find on the lake. One are the residents who now pretty well, known commodities, people who have boats, go out on the lake, do their thing. Second is people who come in from outside using the launch, and they may or may not be familiar with the lake and maybe have more issues that we need to communicate with them about. The third are the people who we're going to talk about with Laura, who rent a boat, a kayak or a canoe from the town beach, and then go out into the lake, and they might be the least familiar with, what's going on. So just, those are sort of three types of communities that you might need to interact with.
Great point, Dan.
Sounds good. I like engaging with people, and I look forward to it. So
Excellent. Mike, or Jeff, when are you expecting to get the boat on the lake?
So I've been talking with Lieutenant Thrain. That is going to be happening before Memorial Day. So that's what the next 2 weeks.
Excellent.
That's the goal.
Yep.
That's the goal.
And that's before it gets all of its makeover and everything.
Yes, because that can't happen until after July 1.
Yeah, gotcha.
And then we're gonna talk to the different vendors to see the least amount of downtime, like if we can pull the boat out on a Monday and then have it worked on and then have it back by Friday, kind of. So it won't be, it's all makeover all at once. It could be pieced out too.
So when does the rec commission access to the boat begin? Is that after the full makeover?
I would say so. Yeah.
So, again, Jeff, we'll get together and I'll take you around the lake, probably first at our boat. Our Lake Boone patrol boat will also be in the water by Memorial Day, if not sooner. I hope to get it in next week. But we also got funding for a new motor, so maybe we can work together and not have both boats off the lake at the same time. So if if you need a boat, our boat is always available to you. It has blue lights on it. I like the multicolored lights, Mike. How do we get those?
What's that? How did you what?
The multicolored lights, the red.
So they're called, I think they're like Wayland Trio lights, and so you can get them from like MHQ, which is a cruiser vendor. So if you ever see our cruisers and they have the white and blue in them, those are what, you can just add a third color. So whatever colors you really want, what combinations.
So we'll probably take your recommendation on what our boat should have on it. Over the years, it's only had blue. So that when an officer was on board the boat, he had the blue lights and the siren and the PA.
Mhm.
But if we're out in it, we never use those, or at least not anymore. There was a point in time in history when we used to, but that's long past. So any recommendations from Mike, what we should be doing there would be really appreciated.
Yeah, we can definitely have a talk with that, and I can send you the information
Thank you.
on what we end up getting, and then compared to what you would need it for and what you could get. So yeah.
Excellent. And and again, over the years, we've always tried to keep at least one boat in the lake. So if one was down, the other was available.
Yeah. It's always good to have redundancy. That's what we do in public safety, always redundant.
Yeah.
Excellent. And the other thing, and I'm sure Mike has passed this along, but Jeff just wanted to reiterate that we do have some unique Lake Boone bylaws. And a number of them are in the boat operation area, so areas that you would be helping enforce. So they're a little more, in some cases, a little more strict than the state laws. So it'll be important to kind of make sure you're well versed in those.
Yep, I already have a copy of them and have been reading up on them.
Excellent.
Oh, to be heavy. Yeah.
Jeff, have you talked at all with the environmental police?
Have I talked to them?
Or Jeff, is Jeff aware of who the contacts are there?
So what we're doing right now is I have a training class set up with an environmental officer. He's going to come out and he's going to actually, he's going to donate his time, which I thought was really nice. And and actually Jeff knows him, Chris Sweeney. He's actually going to come down and go over some boat procedures with us and just help go over some nomenclature with the officers that are not feeling too confident. So we're going to be doing that shortly. So that's what we're doing right now. For our area, there's a couple of different sergeants that cover our area, and Ken Gormley is one of them. And I'll make sure Jeff has all their contact. But it's also someone who's on call too for our region.
Mike, you did a great job as always.
Thank you.
Mike, are there plans for patrolling during the week?
So yeah, I'm going to actually talk to Jeff about that. I have some extra money where I can increase our presence for during the week as well as on the weekend too. So we'll definitely be out there more during the week as well too. And I think I keep saying, I've said this before, if you see 2 or 3 of us out on the boat, it doesn't mean we're all like, let's go for a ride. It's a lot of it to do with training. So if you see Jeff out there with myself or the lieutenant or any other officer, we're just trying to review things and get things going for him, as well as re-establishing our presence out there as well, and also getting ourselves accustomed again. So we're always trying to keep up with our training. So, you got to train all the time to make sure you perform as how you want to. So,
Just
yeah,
don't bring a fishing rod out there.
yeah. The water skis are okay though, right? No.
When you get your new boat,
When we
when you
get
get
the
the
new
new
one.
motor,
So
maybe.
we'll be out there during the week, right? I know that was your initial question.
Well, I mean, there's people that like to come and play and they do that 7 days a week.
Yes, there are. We'll be working. I'll be working with Jeff on his schedule, and also again, as of last year, this patrols have the full discretion if they know something's going on, or if they're on patrol and Jeff's not working and they want to take the boat out, they have that discretion as well.
Okay. All right.
So it doesn't have to be a planned patrol. It could be a surprise patrol.
Should we communicate to Jeff through you, Mike?
Yeah, yes, as always, if you have any concerns or emergencies, you can give us a call here and we'll dispatch appropriate resources. Jeff will have the ability to receive voicemail. I don't know if he knows that yet, but we're getting a new phone system, so he'll get all that. So if someone calls with a non-emergency, hey, I just wanted to let the Lake Boone officer know X, Y, and Z, we'll have the ability to say, we'll transfer that to his voicemail. And so he'll have that capability soon.
The other thing, Mike, for Jeff is, as you know, many times your officers have met off-lake people at the boat ramp when they were pulling out their boat trying to get away. And they have been ticketed that way several times. So we appreciate that. So sometimes you don't actually have to stop them on the lake and you don't actually have to, environmental police will actually write a ticket from shore and mail it to you.
Well, that is true. And then the other part too, with having Jeff doing both, not only the Lake Boone, but also our patrol, our cruiser certified officer, he will be off the lake sometimes and driving around the lake and enforcing the laws as well. So if he is working one of those shifts and he does hear a violation, he absolutely can go out on the boat. So he'll be able to do both roles, which is really fortunate for us.
And one last question I had,
Yes.
Mike, was just, you had mentioned last year that you were talking with Hudson Police and that there might be some interest or maybe not in actually participating in patrolling. Any update on that?
So I talked to Chief DePercio. He is still willing to put it out to his officers. He has not yet. So we haven't seen any feedback yet on that, but he is willing to put it out to his officers and have them come over and supplement the patrol as well. So I would just have to,
And then that would come out of
his budget,
out of what?
his budget.
Okay. Okay.
So Mike, that's a budget issue there too, because our budget is fixed, and so we can only reimburse you to what we've already budgeted.
Well, we don't budget, Conray, for the police any longer.
Yeah, I have that.
Well, actually, I'm sorry. He's correct. That Hudson does, they do budget to transfer money over, and that it is a third of the 5,000. So
Right. It's like the 1,800 or 16, whatever it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but the other chief and myself, we always, when we budget for events, and we always look at what could happen during the year. We plan for, situations. We plan for what we want to see as our department to do. So, I'm sure, the money I'm not worried about. If he's going to pay his officers, that's on him to pay his officers. The budget for me to be concerned about is to pay Jeff and to pay the patrol officers for Lake Boone. So if he wants to add to that, then that's something we can talk about next year, but we'll see how much interest we get, because I don't think we should just have the full responsibility. I think it's great to have both towns really talking and working together.
Right.
So
Okay.
one
Well, I didn't have any other questions. Conrad, yes, you do.
Just one last comment for Jeff. Two things. If you could successfully navigate Winnie, you'll love Lake Boone. No rocks. And we do have stumps.
And a sandbar,
I'm sorry, Chris?
sort of that sandbar over
In the
by,
first basin.
We'll walk you through the places you got to worry about, but there's not many. And we got some shallows and we got some stumps, but no rocks, no witches, none of that stuff.
I'm familiar with the witches. I like to stay away from those.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I look forward to getting out with you and having you show me around.
Good. Look forward to it too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So
I'm gonna have to, I appreciate everyone letting me come on at 6:30, by the way,
Yep.
thank you. I
Yep.
do have another call at 7, so I'm gonna get going. If Jeff wants to stay on and answer some questions, he's gonna be starting his full weeks of training coming up, so he may not have all the answers. But everyone has my email, or they can get me at like Stow Police at stow-ma.gov. I'll answer whatever questions you send at me.
excellent.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, thank you.
And Jeff, can you stay on just a little bit longer?
I can stay on longer, yes.
Okay. All righty.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks. All righty. So are there any other burning questions from Dan or Conray for Jeff at this point?
Well, I just want to see if Laura Greeno needed to connect in on this conversation. She's online, I believe.
Well, we do have her as a separate agenda topic.
Yeah, I didn't know if any of the aspects that we talked about with the safety boat also being used by the rec commission, whether she might have any questions or they'll come up later, I suppose.
I'm good for right now. I'm just listening in. It's nothing that I wasn't aware of, so it's all sounding good and no surprises on my end. So I appreciate that.
Thanks, Laura.
Welcome.
Excellent. Okay. Is there any, Conray, you
I got
still
one
have?
quick question for Jeff, just as a kind of what type of boat were you running on Winnie?
I had a couple, but the last one I had was a Sea Ray Sundancer 260. So with a full cabin.
Both very familiar with it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful boat. I miss it every day.
I used to own, we should talk. I've got an ocean boat, so we maybe get together down there. Good. Thank you very much, Jeff, for everything. You'll like Lake Boone. Our boats are much easier to handle.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm gonna give a minute or two, just if there's any burning questions from the from other members, public. Laura Diamond, it looks like you have your hand up.
Yeah, hi Jeff, welcome to Lake Boone. Dan pointed out, everybody pointed out that there's 3 types of boaters: the recreation boaters, the people that live here, and the people that come in from the outside. Also, the residents that live here, some of them have motorboats, some of them have kayaks, and some of us are avid swimmers. And the lake is pretty small. We all try to play by the rules, and we hope to have a safe summer again this year. From my perspective, I'd like to see some serious surveillance of the rules in terms of, I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, 150 feet away from swimmers or docks. Is that, do I have that right? What is it? Is it, Chris, can you, Conray, can you weigh in? 150 feet away if you're running at full force away from swimmers or docks. Is that true? Or if you're towing? Can you help me out?
I would answer that more or less because I don't have the letter of the law in front of me. There's some nuances in that you have to be careful of. And I have to always reread that. You know, the fundamental issue on all of that is, stay away from the swimmers. And, you know, we have a problem at your house, especially where we've had people run the shoreline at high speeds. And that's definitely wrong.
Yeah. And if 2 boats, my point is, if 2 boats are, if one power boat with the skier is going one way and another one is coming the other way in the second basin where I live, and I'm swimming along the shore, it's really impossible to play by those rules. So everybody has done their best, and we've had some great summers where nobody's been hurt, but I think the potential is definitely there, and it's tough to patrol that. It's tough for people to follow the rules, given our basin 2 especially, is very narrow. So I just wanted to put my 2 cents in there and my concern as a lifeguard and a water safety instructor specialist. And I'm very aware of those rules and concerned about safety.
Great. It's good just for Jeff to hear, perspectives there. Is there anyone else with a burning question? Otherwise, I'm going to open this to public comment. I know we have a couple of folks who wanted to speak in public comment.
And I could say whether here or in public, I just wanted to talk a little bit more regarding the safety of what's going on in the lake. So
Okay.
you tell
I think
me
that's
now.
gonna-
Or
Yep,
I
I
have
think
the
it's going to come
same
up
topic.
very
I was
quickly in
hoping
public
to
comment.
catch.
All right, so we're going to close out our agenda item of the update from the Stow Police. But Jeff, if you can stay on a little longer, I think there'd be a few things that might be interesting just to hear concerns that exist within our community. Red, I know you had asked if you could speak a little bit around one area, so I'm going to open it to you initially.
Okay, yeah, I'm requesting, Chris, for the Lake Boone Commission to explore the idea of setting limits on wake boats, wakeboarding, and wake surfing. Beginning of last year, there were already 4 states in the country that have set hard limits on the application of wakeboarding and wake surfing. And now there's 9 states that are aggressively moving forward to setting limits on lakes for the use in wakeboarding and wake surfing. Now, typically the results of their studies and these laws that have been set, they range from the width of a body of water has to be minimum 400 or 500 is the range between the states that have set limits. The distance from shore has been 200 to 250 feet. Some of the laws involve misdemeanor penalties for violation. Some of those, and those states include, places like New Hampshire. They've done a lot of study about the effects of wakeboarding, wake surfing, and wake boarding, where wakeboarding creates waves that are 180% higher than a cruising boat, and wake surfing is 720% higher than a regular cruising boat. So, I mean, I have the list of states if anybody's interested. But I mean, the reason for the concern, and I think we have it in spades on Lake Boone, because we've had wakeboards boats for the last few years. I mean, I think the number one thing is public safety. And that's why I was hoping to at least catch Jeff, if not Jeff and Mike. The wake boats doing wakeboarding and wake surfing, by definition, what they're doing is excessive rocking. I've been out, not in a kayak, not in a canoe, in my 17.5-foot boat, and I've had to leave the second basin because somebody's storming up and down wake surfing in the middle of the second basin. And I know in the case of Tennessee, where they set the rules, the law just recently, they actually had 2 canoers actually die from getting swamped and drowned in their lake. So I think it's a real public safety issues, paddle boarders, kayakers, canoes, and even small boats. So I think that's the number one reason. Number two that I didn't realize until I was doing this research is the wake boats, they can create disturbance 16 feet down from the surface. And what they're seeing is that's breaking up the sediment and moving the phosphorus back into the water, and they are causing algae blooms, which I think everybody, I mean, we're working so hard on Healthy Lake Boone Initiative to deal with those issues. And I think right now we have wake boats that are doing nothing but creating it. I don't think it's a coincidence that we've had lake algae blooms the last few years, now that the wake boats have shown up. And the third reason is the damage to the shoreline. I've had them go at low speeds, 75 to 100 feet off my shoreline, and I get hit with a 2 or 3 foot wave. Now I have a stone barrier put up there now to protect myself, but that's happening around the whole country, and it's certainly happening a lot on Lake Boone. So I think it's something that the Lake Boone Commission or LBA, not sure where it falls as far as peer review. And I think even enforcement on the lake can help us deal with this thing. But I'd like to have this explored and some movement to start protecting ourselves from wake boats, wake surfing, and wakeboarding.
Thank you for that, Red. I think there's sort of two takeaways, well, many takeaways, but two key ones here. One is, whether kind of keeping track of whether Massachusetts as a state is going to move forward with anything in that space, and or whether the Lake Boone Commission decides it needs to move forward with perhaps a new set of bylaws or other restrictions. But the other area, which I think is important for Jeff, is just your area of public safety and excessive rocking and whatever, because right now, even if they're not outlawed or illegal on our lake, they still have to be courteous, and they own their wake. They own the responsibility for any implications of their wake, both on human life and also on the shoreline. So just a thing to keep in mind as there is patrolling, if that kind of an issue is seen.
And if I'm not mistaken, the excessive rocking is in our laws now. So it's an enforcement issue more than a need for a new state law.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is there may be some things that would need literally to ban them or ban them in certain basins or whatever would be a whole different thing. But if they are violating an existing law or regulation, then that's something that our the environmental police and the Stow police can help enforce. So,
Red, do you know if Massachusetts is trying to establish such a law?
That I didn't find, Dan. I've been doing Google searches to find as much information as I can, but I haven't found anything related to Massachusetts motion in that area.
So if we go back to Chris's question, I think as we look into this in the future, how much can we enforce with our existing policy? Because that
Yep.
we may be able to. We may have enough just in our existing policy. We may need some new regs, but I think it's a good question for us to investigate.
Okay, thank you, Red, for bringing that up. Dave Swirsky, do you want to talk a little bit? What were yours related or different questions?
Not related to the wakeboard, but related obviously to what's going on in the lake.
Yep.
Just observations that I've seen in the past few weeks where, boating has really started to take hold, earlier and earlier every year, it seems like. But a couple of weeks ago, there was a jet ski out with a passenger on the back, speeding down the first basin here, and pretty much right in front of my house. They just did a quick 180 and tossed, the passenger off and himself off, kind of fell off. So, enforcement on that, I mean, that's definitely a reckless act, I would say. Sometimes when you see them out singularly jump in their own wake, I mean, that's either, that may not be reckless, but when they have a passenger on their jet ski, to me, that's a reckless act, and that should definitely be enforced. And you're seeing a lot of that this year already. Also, jet ski speeding through the Narrows last Friday. So that would be someone, it looked like a new jet ski. So that's somebody who is new to the lake and doesn't know the rules. So, that would be nice if information, they could be stopped and informed. It seems like it's going to be a lot of information put out. To me, it would be a lot of informational stops at first, just to get people back to the swing of things, like you say, to get the safety back on board. And then enforcement after that. What was it? There was a jet ski out at night one night, and then a boat. So just the typical stuff, but it just seems pretty early this year. And with the jet skis, if we don't get to them early, that just leads other people to see what they're doing and emulating that action. So, I don't know how quickly we can get a boat out there to kind of enforce this, or like you say, pick them up on the shoreline and talk to them that way.
Are we able to use photographs or videos as evidence and, clarifying who this person was as a way of reporting if the patrol boat isn't there?
We got a video once, but it wasn't good enough to read their tags.
Dan, a couple of quick ones on that one, Chris, if you don't mind. State law is real specific on jet skis, and there's like 8 or 10 things that eight things specifically that you're not supposed to do on a jet ski, and it's an enforcement problem, and it's getting worse every year, because what's happening is availability of the cost of the power boats is going up and up and up, and these people find a way to buy a jet ski, and they get out here, and they both lake residents and non-residents. It's an issue. I've seen it already this year too. And to Laura's point earlier, I've seen jet skis buzz her dock at 40 miles, 50 miles an hour, 20 feet off her dock. And that's the stuff we're dealing with. That's probably the biggest safety issue on the lake right now.
So maybe the question is for Jeff about whether we can use photographs and videos as something we provide to you, to Mike.
You need to get their numbers. You have to have clear pictures of their tags.
It would have to be very,
Have to be what?
very clear.
Mm-hmm.
The hull numbers or not the hull numbers, but the registration numbers and a clear identification and things like that.
So guys,
Jeff,
commissioners, remember that we can write bylaw tickets.
Yes.
We can't write Chapter 90B, but we can write bylaws. And
Right.
So when they're violating the bylaws, we have the ability to write that up as a bylaw violation. It's nowhere near as good as what Jeff can do. You typically, I think Dan, you said it, or Dave said it. It is an educational issue that, in the past, I've literally gone to people's houses and I've explained the Chapter 90B laws to them and explained that they could lose the right to drive their car because of behavior of the jet ski on the lake. A jet ski violation is a Chapter 90B, which is registry. You get 3 of those, you lose your license to drive the car. And people don't realize this stuff, so they don't realize the marine law and the road laws are really tied together now. So I have found in the past, if you can find the people, 2 things have happened. We've read the riot act to people that are off lake, they never come back because they realize this is a good place to go play. But the on lake people is a different issue, and we're seeing more and more of that now.
So this is Kaylisa. I assume that it's been discussed whether the commission could prevent jet skis from being on the lake at all. I was out last weekend, and maybe it was the same people, but there was, a dual jet ski that was just like spinning around, making its own waves just to jump, which is probably a violation of something. But has the commission ever discussed just not having them on the lake?
So, Lisa Conway again. So that's actually a state issue at one level. The state has banned jet skis on bodies of less than 100 acres. And the trouble is that Lake Boone is multiple lakes hooked together that in total are more than 100 acres.
Okay.
That if we could rename the lake 3 different lakes and they'd be banned automatically. But yeah, it's a slippery slope. It's a hard one. It really is. And it's unfortunately it is getting worse.
I mean,
It's not a slippery slope unless you want it to be.
But for me, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, they have to make their own waves to have fun. Otherwise, this is a pretty mellow lake,
Jump with their own wake's a violation. You can write. Jeff can write that.
All right, Jeff.
If he sees, he has to see it, remember.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Jeff,
So in-
Jeff, I mentioned that this can happen 7 days a week. There's actually certain ones that they show up at a specific time every night. And I can tell you 5 o'clock, they're going to be there. And they'll
Yep.
come out of the back basins at 5 o'clock. And they'll go play.
It's going to be a fine line of, between the education, the implementation or, having fun and, not being dangerous, is that fine line to, like Connie was saying, to, how do you keep everyone happy and everyone safe is what it is. And Chief Salisi was actually mentioning to me before I was talking to him at the town meeting, he was saying that there's like 5 or 9 towns or something in the state that have banned jet skis. So I don't know if he's talking about the law that Conray was talking about, or if this is something separate on top of
Sign us up.
that.
It's something separate, David. There's a state law that regulates them, and then there's towns that ban them.
So I just wanted to respond to Kalisa. It is possible. So the Lake Boone Commission does have the authority to make new bylaws. And this is not one that was kind of taken under advisement in the last round of changes to our bylaws. That's not to say that it could not be in the future. It's a fairly arduous process to make changes to the bylaws, but it is not impossible. And yes, it is this group, the Lake Boone Commission, that could undertake that.
Almost have to be.
Sorry, so how does one request that?
Well, for the most part, I mean, things come up in public comment. They come up as regular issues. The first step is generally what we're talking about here, which is really, trying to educate and avoid the need for it. But if we have significant issues on the lake, over the next months, then you could certainly, make a request specifically, and the commission, can take that under advisement as to whether that's something that it's going to pursue.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
To go back to the question of education first, do we have a sense of whether the perpetrators are lake residents or whether they're coming in through the launch? Is there a predominance one way or the other?
The worst ones come in from the launch, but unfortunately we're getting, I can tell you who the lake residents that are causing problems are. They are some lake residents, especially there's one not too far from you, Dave, in the Narrows there. They've got 2 jet skis on Barton Road. They absolutely go nuts when they get out there. So we kind of know which boats they are.
Well, if we know who they are, why aren't we talking to them now? That makes
the police has to see it, Dan.
Well, you have seen it. You're contradicting yourself. You're saying that you've witnessed misbehavior, you know who they are, and you're in a position of authority to do something about it. And you're telling us that you know where they live. Why don't we knock on their door, give them a little bit of our feelings on the matter and nip it in the bud? And don't tell me it's a slippery slope. If we don't want something happening on the lake, there's no slope involved. It's something that needs to be stopped,
So
especially now.
Dan, that's a good suggestion. And we can work with Jeff and maybe make that happen. But remember, for the police, they have to see violations for the most part to do anything about it. And even though that we can write bylaw tickets, if they're not writing first of all, we don't have any bylaw tickets. Maybe we can fix that. But we can't. We have no authority to stop a boat anymore. So it's difficult.
I think maybe what Dan is suggesting is that if we as a commission are aware of some folks who may need some education, or could benefit from some education or discussion. It doesn't necessarily need to include the police department. It's something that could happen, as a neighbor or as a member of the community. So that might be something that the LBC kind of takes under advisement, or, Conray, if it's someone you're very good at talking with folks and letting them understand the ramifications of, things that are perhaps, not safe, not appropriate. It might be something you just have a conversation with them. So it's not about ticketing. It's not about, that sort of thing. It's really education and communication.
Chris, that's.
Connie, did you have that authority before?
Well, that's a long story, Red. So for years, the Lake Boone commissioners had blue lights on their boat, and they did stop people. And, it's a historical thing. So at one point in time, the answer was yes. State laws changed and that authority went away. We're not police officers, fundamentally. We don't have Jeff, what's the right term? We don't have the right to turn the blue lights on and stop someone. I forget what the legal term for that is, but.
But we do have the right to just inform somebody, to communicate with them as members of the Lake Boone Commission.
Which we will continue to do, and I will continue to do, and have done, and still am doing.
So have you spoken with them?
That particular ones, no. I haven't been able to ever, I've never been able to catch up with them, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, Conrad, because, we're all, Chris, you and I are all in that responsibility. Yep. I'm just trying to understand now what we can and should do just on the education and informing level, let alone the enforcement level.
So as residents, not just commissioners, but as residents, we can understand after a while who the violators are. And it tends to be a small number of people. It's the old one bad apple problem, right? So we've got to watch. I haven't spent enough time on the lake yet for you to do that.
Yep. So I'm gonna just, again, this is public comment, so we're not always, we're not at the point of actually solving all of the things that come up. I think this is, bringing up some excellent thoughts, and maybe there's some further action that the commission needs to start taking under advisement around some direct communication with folks. Again, public comment, we don't necessarily solve anything. We want to hear concerns and things that should come up as future agenda items. So.
So I don't know if this is like public comment or new business, but I live on Lakeside Ave, and I'm on Monahan Cove. And I've been here for 7 years, and there's a lot of fishing that goes on here and whatnot. And I was hoping that we could get a no wake buoy in the mouth of Monahan's Cove, because they come speeding in because they're fishing, and it just to earlier comments, there's a lot of waves and no erosion yet, but I'm worried about it.
Okay, so that's something that we can, as a commission, can certainly talk about, whether that is something appropriate or something that could be done. So thank you, Kalisa. It may be that.
And we have that. Would that be part of, at least today, on our agenda for the boat motor replacement buoys?
No.
Well, no, I think it would be new business, as Kalisa said.
Okay.
If we want to have a conversation very specifically about, introducing a new buoy, I think that will be a future item that we can talk about, add to new business and schedule, because we're going to, folks are going to want to have some advance notice and be a part of the discussion in that. So. Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Sure. So I'm gonna close out public comment at this time.
Actually, could I say a thing or comment or two?
Sorry,
Brendan.
who's speaking?
Brandon.
Yes, Brendan.
Sorry. No, I just want to say that let's just be clear that it's not the wakeboarding itself that's making the waves. It's the wake boats that are making the waves.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people who do wakeboard behind, 16, 17-foot motorboats. I will also say that, the boat sizes have been increasing over the years. And I agree. I'm not sure who, I think it was Red who mentioned the disturbance to the muck on the bottom of the lake and how that can cause the phosphorus to rise to the surface and cause our problems, as well as the erosion of the shoreline, all caused by these large boats, doing wakeboards. I would propose that, and actually another thing too is the excessive rocking. I mean, one person's excessive rocking is not another person's excessive rocking. Another person's, reckless behavior is just fun, right? I mean, if you're 18, it's fun. If you're 39 or 49, it might be reckless, right? So it's very much subjective. I would propose that the Lake Boone Commission look at limiting the size of the boats and not only length, but also motive horsepower and perhaps speed as well. And that, of course, would have to be phased in over a number of years. So the sooner that some regulation gets implemented or discussed, that, like, say, for example, in 5 years, a boat larger than, 150 horsepower can't be on the lake. Or somehow you phase it in, right? Because somebody who buys a boat next year isn't going to like the fact that you're banning them the following year. So it has to be done quickly, or it has to be done in phases, but the implementation of the strategy should be done very quickly. Otherwise, all of this environmental review and study that we've done is going to be for nothing, and we're going to have a polluted, toxic lake that we're going to be not swimming in. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Brandon.
And if I could, Chris, I just want to acknowledge Brandon's a member of the Hudson Conservation Commission. Thank you for joining us here, and thank you for all the support you've done over the past couple of years in our study of the health of the lake. You've been very active and concerned. I want to thank you for that.
Pleasure.
Okay.
I just want, Chris, can I just add one more thing? I totally support people going neighbor to neighbor, and as the commissioners in Conway, if you have the energy to go and talk to people. And I just want to add that there's a house on North Shore Drive that sold, I think last year or 2 summers ago. They have tons of boats and young people, and I think they have a green jet ski. But that's definitely a house that is making a lot of waves. Those kids there coming from that house on North Shore Drive. I don't know if you know where it is, or you know what I'm talking about, but it'd be worth a conversation.
Laura, it's already happened. You talk about Karen and Dan. It's already happened. I've already talked to them.
Oh, good, thank you.
And they've committed not to do it anymore, so we'll see. But
Okay.
I know I've actually got to know them as a result of talking to them. They're good people. We'll figure it out with them.
A lot of times it's just education and asking neighbor to neighbor, hey, this is, not a good thing for us. Telling people why, and that works.
Yeah,
See somebody else getting away with it, so they decide they can do it too.
Well, in case of Karen and Dan, the kids don't live there, just Karen and Dad do. It's when they visit. But I'll talk to them again.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I am closing out public comment for today. We've had a lot of discussion and very good discussion. So, and it is that time of year where we're all seeing the activity and a lot of excitement. So certainly plenty to talk through. So, all right, we're closing out public comment. Our next agenda item is the Stow Rec Commission. Laura, I don't know if you want or need Jeff on this, to continue to be on at this point for this agenda item, because he certainly doesn't need to be on for any of the rest of our agenda items.
Really, it's totally up to you. I think it was more important to have Mike on and explain what I couldn't explain the last time, how things will work on that, and you know, how it will be a learning, a learning curve for all of us, and experimental. And so
Okay, so I think, Jeff, you're certainly welcome. You can stay as long as you would like. I don't want to keep you longer than we need to. So if you have other things you need to do or want to do, thank you very much. And again, welcome to our lake community. We're looking forward to working with
See
you.
you on the water.
Thank you very much. And anytime anybody sees me, feel free to stop and say hi. And like I said, I'll listen to any of your concerns and do the best I can to make Lake Boone a fun, pleasant, safe environment for everyone. So,
Great.
all right.
Thank you.
Jeff, Mike has my contact number, so you can get a hold of me.
All right, will do. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Take care.
You too.
All right. Okay, so we are moved on to our next agenda item, which is to revisit the annual request from the Stow Rec Commission around the rental program for various boats. And so I want to kind of open up there. I know there were some questions that the commission had, and we've kind of gotten some updates now from Mike around clarification around the boat and who would be authorized to use it. And Laura, I don't know, now that we're through budgeting and the town meeting, whether you are continuing to want to add the additional I think it was two stand-up paddle boats to your fleet there. Is that still something you are looking to do?
yes,
Okay.
I would say whether we rent them, I want to have the ability to rent them. I'm not sure that we will necessarily rent them year one. But if we because I don't know when I'd get them. I have to wait till July. By the time they get shipped here, or whatever the case may be, it might be something we just want to use for our camp, or some lifeguard practicing and different things like that, and then do it. But who knows, in August, people may see them and have interest in them, and I know people have interest in them, and so we'd potentially want to rent.
Yeah. Okay. So as far as I'm concerned, I think we've asked most of our questions previously, or at least my questions, and I would just say on the paddle boards and the rental, I'm not suggesting we would say, no, you can't. I'm not suggesting that myself. But I would be very careful, because they, again, with the size of the boats that are on this lake and the jet skis and everything else, those are very unstable. Most of them is very different. So and it ends up with people in the water, and that's one of the things that we worry about, is people in the water that are that can't be well seen outside of your swimming area. And so I would just caution you that I would step very cautiously into renting those. Maybe put very serious restrictions on how far they can go, so that we don't end up with them going through the Narrows and off into Basin 2 or anything like that.
I agree. Sounds good.
So Conrad and Dan, where do you stand? Other questions, or are we ready to make a motion here?
I'm ready to make a motion. So let me ask one question to Laura first, Chris. Laura, when do you want to start renting? What's your first time that you want to be in the rental business?
I'm sorry, you were a little bit
When do you start your rental program?
Oh, we typically will start that on weekends, starting probably the third week in June.
You won't have the safety boat available then.
No. No, and I don't anticipate, you know, I mean, well, I'll be prepared for the boat when it comes, but I don't see us implementing it very often, only that as a need this. And like Chris said, I would assume, I don't even want to say assume, I would anticipate that we would keep the paddle boats into our basin and along the shoreline, just like the canoes and the kayaks. So yeah, so we would probably proceed as we have in past years. Just, knowing that we have the boat as a backup is really how I look at it.
Yeah, I'm fine to permit her for, pretty much, first of all, we don't offer the permit. We just recommend to the selectmen do the permit. And, I'm good with that, pretty much the same as we did last year.
So I move that we approve this.
Okay, can you go ahead and just make the formal motion there, Dan?
I move that we approve use of rec commission's use of the rental boats as delineated in Laura's previous request.
Can I alter that one a little bit, Dan? Because as Conway said, we don't approve it. What we do is we make a recommendation to the select board of Stow Select Board. So if you could restate that away.
I move that we recommend to the select board approval of the rec commission's request.
Okay. All right. And do I have a second?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. And do we have any further discussion? All right. Seeing none. All in favor of providing our support? Aye. Dan? All right. And that is all three of us.
Who was it? Who did the seconding? I missed that.
Conrad.
I did.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, thank you,
That motion has
guys.
passed. Laura, I will send off a note probably tomorrow to the select board and let them know that we do provide our support for your program.
Awesome. I really appreciate it, guys. And thanks for the opportunity to come in again.
Thanks, Laura, for so capably helping everybody enjoy the lake.
Awesome.
That's an important role. I appreciate it.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. All right, moving on. Meeting minutes. So we have one set of meeting minutes, which is the April 12th meeting. Dan, I sent you a few very minor.
Yep. And I integrated those. Thank you for finding those. And I sent back, you probably haven't seen it yet, but I sent back I accepted all those edits.
All righty. Conrad, any issues with the minutes?
I had one issue with it, and I don't have them in front of me right now. Wait a minute, I gotta bring them up. I sent you guys a note on it, but wait a minute, I'll get to them. I didn't look at the amended ones.
Actually, I just noticed that I didn't press the button to send that amended one. I just sent it just this very moment. In the minute of public comment, there's no 8 a.m. rule. In the public comments, there is no 8 a.m. rule. The call was asking for.
Yeah, the clarification is that that particular public comment was they were hoping that voting wouldn't happen until after 8 a.m. because of the noise boats make. State law, we don't have that in our bylaws, neither does the state have that. So, right now, state law is, which we follow, you can vote from sun up to sundown. So that's the only issue. There's no 8 a.m. rule that doesn't exist.
So can you send me a rephrasing of that?
Let me see, let me look at it. I'm trying to pull it up right now. Oh, come on, computer. It's working on it. Interesting. It's not letting me. Why won't it? Oh, there it is. So the first sentence, let's see. Okay, the way, so Lucy's comment is good. It's Chris's comment that I think I had it that wasn't good.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
So what should it say?
I think that we could just say that that any bylaw.
Yeah,
rule-
just take out the words 8 AM.
Yeah.
And Chris said that, any rule would have to be changed or approved by the bylaws. And then you got it. Just take the
Okay,
word 8 AM out and
Yep,
put the
good
word
catch, good
any.
great. All right, so I will make that edit.
Okay. So do we have a motion to
I'll
approve
approve
the
the
minutes
minutes.
as amended?
I'll make that motion. Approve the minutes as amended.
I'll second.
Okay. Excellent. Any further discussion? No, just thank you again, Dan, for doing these.
Right.
Righty, all in favor of approving these minutes? Aye. And that is unanimous, all three of us, so motion passed. Okay. Alrighty. Moving on. Bills for payment.
So Red had an issue with that second solitude bill. I don't understand that issue.
Well, let's just talk through the bills that we have, and go from there. So we have, can start with the easy. The easy is our Zoom account. So that's a reimbursement,
Yeah.
$14.99 for me.
Yep. I moved that we pay that bill.
I'll second.
Okay, $14.99. All right, any further discussion? No, and all in favor? Aye,
Aye.
and that is unanimous, all three. Okay. All right, so now we'll move on to the next one. Just, we'll do chronology here. The next one is a bill for $300 for preparing and filing the Mass DEP permit application for Lake Boone from Solitude. So this one, so Brad, I know you kind of were, you're kind of
Yeah, I mean,
not
I
sure
don't know.
why we would get billed for that.
Right, I mean, I don't think we're getting piecemeal everything. My understanding is their proposal gave us a fixed price and it included all the permits and licenses.
Well, I think that may be true, but the billing, the way that the contract is written, the billing takes place at completion of a deliverable, any particular deliverable. So what they seem to have done is they did the application, right, the permit, and that they're billing $300 for that part. And then they did the actual weed treatment, and they're billing the 21,000 plus for that. And then they did the what was considered the future planning, and they are billing us for that. So this is one of the things that we talked about, is when we saw the contract, it's like I wasn't sure how we were going to get billed, whether we were going to have milestones like we did the last time, where we just knew exactly how much we were going to have, on this point and this point and this point, and that doesn't see that the contract does not read that way for this
Right.
1-year contract. So
Well, I mean, that just puts the burden for us to make sure that they don't charge us at the end of the day more than the proposal
Correct.
said
Well,
they
that's
should
true.
charge us.
Well, to us and them. So that contract is for $44,000.
Right.
So far, obviously, they have not exceeded that. And it's only, it won't, it's not intended to include next spring's application. That would be a separate contract.
Should
So
I
think-
talk to Dominic about the building process at this point, just to get some clarification?
I think that would be fine, but given we have bills from March and April, yeah, 2 from April, 1 from March, are we
What's the
contesting?
date? So the $300 permit application, what's the date of that?
4/14.
Because I'm wondering if the March and April invoices look, in line, we should just go ahead and pay those. And I think you should communicate that because I don't believe, maybe I'm wrong here, but I don't believe they should have a separate billing for the permit. It's all part of a package price, just like they don't bill us for each person's hour. It's part of a fixed price.
Well, it's,
I
but that's
agree,
just
and
it,
that's
Dan. It's not really a fixed price. I mean, it's a not to exceed
total is.
anyway.
The total is fixed, isn't it?
Well,
Not to exceed.
should be.
I mean, I don't know whether it is truly fixed or it's a not to exceed in a sense. But in any
My
case,
understanding all along was it was a fixed price proposed.
yeah,
And now we're talking about the timing of the payments.
And also how they describe the payments, that they should not separately, I suppose they might mention that that's one of their costs, I suppose, but that permit is part of that fixed cost. And therefore it should be, here's the fixed cost for doing the first treatment with sonar, for example, or whatever the deliverable demarcation is.
I guess I don't see an issue. I mean, it's fine. What I'm saying is the way that the contract was written, we literally did not know how they're going to, like whether they were going to bill us in stages or whatever.
I'll talk to Dominic and get a clarification on what their plan and intent is. But I'm like Dan, I believed it's a fixed contract.
So in the meantime, guys, we can pay these bills.
I think
because-
that's safe. Like Chris said, it's less than $44,000 so far.
Yeah, exactly. So I get, yes, and that's what I would like. And, there's some value to us in the way that they're billing us, because it starts to give some transparency to different elements. If they just all of a sudden said, okay, we're going to bill you half of the 44,
Right.
we're like, okay, this way at least we have a sense. Okay, we know there's some cost associated with permitting. We know there's some cost associated with the planning work they've done with you
Right.
guys. It's helpful to me.
Yeah, I just want to make sure they're not thinking that it's their bid price plus they get reimbursed for the permit.
Yes,
That's-
I think that would be fine to clarify, but I find it hard to believe they would.
So I'd like to, I'll make a motion to approve these 3 Solitude invoices. I think they total 24,195. Is that correct?
Cool. I didn't add them up.
There's one for 21,645. There's one for 2,250, and there's one for 300.
That is all true.
So those 3 invoices, I would make a motion to approve payment of them.
Do I have a second for that?
I'll second.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can you just give me those 3 amounts again?
21,645, 2,250, and 300. And I think it totals to 24,195.
I think it's helpful just to go ahead, Dan, in the minutes, just put the individual, because they're,
Yeah.
that's fine. And so, okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this? If not, okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And that is all three of us. So we have approved these. I will divide them into the 2/3, 1/3 on each of these invoices. I will submit them, the Stow portion to Stow, and Conway, I'll give you they'll be
Yep, give me the
scanned
paper. I'll
copies,
submit
and
it.
you do that part for Hudson,
Hudson.
correct?
Yep.
Excellent. All right. And then I think at some point, we might want to talk about where these bills should go. Not these specific ones, but in the future, because,
Yeah, we'll talk about that, Chris. I know exactly what you're saying. If you-
yeah, because they went, two of them went to Denise. At least she, opened them, and then one of them just went into the mailbox that we have there in
So
so, and I don't honestly, I don't
they
go
have
look
to
at that
go,
mailbox often.
they have to go to one of us is what they should do. So, with your resignation, maybe we should just, Red, when you're talking to Dominic, give him my address and have them all sent to me for now.
Send them to you.
Yeah, that way I'll get them.
Okay.
And then we'll figure out what to do. That's what it used to be. They used to always come here and we do it that way. I don't think Denise wants to see them.
No, she just, she asked me what to do with them and whether I wanted her to scan them and send them to me, or I wanted to pick them up or whatever. Dan, how do you feel about that?
However works for you.
Okay. All right, and I think it should be a commission member, so rather than have them go to Red, at this point, I think it does make sense. Conway. Okay. All right. Okay, so I think that's all of our bills. Are there any other bills? Red, did you have a bill for putting it into the newspaper?
Oh, I probably should pay it first.
Ah.
Yes, I will, but that reminds me to pay, what's her name?
Okay. Then
So,
I'm
and
ready to pay it.
I suppose I should submit a bill for reams of paper as I take notes, but I'm willing to make that a benevolent donation.
Yes.
Oh, Chris, I had one and I forgot to submit it. I'll do it next time. It's just for the red light for the buoy down in the fourth station.
Okay. So you'll do that next time. Dan, I sent you a note about two bills that we somehow did not catch, that they were dated in the wrong fiscal year. So we had two Rhode Island Analytical invoices, which we approved back in August of 2021, for some sampling testing. And these invoices were dated March and April of 2020, which by the time and I don't know if they were legitimately, that's when they were from, or.
Did we pay them?
No, we did not. So what happened is we submitted them for payment, and Julie came back and said she couldn't pay them because they were not in the right fiscal year.
Correct.
So two things. One, I don't know if these were not the right bills and these were older bills or what, or if the date was wrong on them. But in any case.
Yeah, I see you sent those to me. I'm sorry you sent them earlier today. I hadn't seen
That's
them yet.
okay.
But
Okay.
let me investigate those. I think it certainly is possible, one's 52, one's 39. It certainly is possible that the Lake Boone Association, I know Dave Swirsky's probably on, but might be able to cover the cost of these if they just can't fit and it gets too convoluted. I want to find out, why were these invoiced to us for, and what event were they invoicing, and whether that was actually possibly a Healthy Lake Boone Initiative project, or was the annual testing that Solitude was supposed to do. I need to investigate a little further.
Yeah, it because they were in the spring, it looks like testing that was done, as we
After
put
the
boards
drawdown.
back in and did
Yeah.
the refill.
Yep.
But it was literally in 2020.
Yep.
And we didn't, they weren't submitted for our review and approval until a 2021 meeting.
Yep.
And that went past the fiscal year.
Great. I will investigate.
Okay, great. So we'll just kind of keep that one on hold. And I don't know why. Usually if Julie has any problem, she reaches right out to me, but she like put a post-it on this and stuck it in our mailbox, and I don't know when she did it. So it could have been sitting there for a while, but it still wouldn't make any difference because she wasn't going to pay it. So okay.
The issues surrounding that. So next.
Okay, so next on our agenda is just a quick touch point on budgets. So first of all, everything got approved as we submitted it to Hudson in their town meeting almost a month ago. And all of the ones that went to Stow were approved in Stow this past Saturday. So our FY23 operating funds and the herbicide treatments were all approved. And so we are in good shape for those starting in July 1st. Those will be our new budgets. The FY22 balances base. So it's a little, I did get and forwarded on the ledgers, but it's a little misleading because the way that Stow does this is well, yeah, it is. So I rather than spend too much time on looking at the individual detail, I looked at all the bills we've submitted for payment this fiscal year. We are in very good shape for our operating budget. So if there are some things we need, if we think that it's worth investing in having another buoy or any of that, I would say we
Yes,
certainly.
I couldn't find the numbers on those ledgers. So what's our budget year to date? How much have we spent?
So hang on, let me bounce to my thing.
It's not on the ledger, or if it is, I can't find it.
Yeah, no, that's what I said. So I kind of gave up on the ledger for a moment because it gets a little confusing, but we have only spent about a little less than $500 in our operating budget thus far. So we have a very healthy balance on that. I'm going to check in with the selectman's office to find out. We budgeted $500 for insurance because they couldn't tell us when we were budgeting originally whether that they were going to expect us to pay that or not. So that might still be coming out of it. And we certainly had budgeted for not knowing what we were going to do. We were budgeting a little high on the side of maintenance for the boat and stuff. So right now, right this moment, based on bills we have submitted against our operating budget, we have close to around $3,000 left.
In the Stow budget,
No, in the total.
in the total
between
budget.
Hudson and Stow.
Okay,
So, Dan, the way this works, Dan, is just an FYI, you probably know it, is, we submit all our bills for operating expenses to Stow, they track that, and then at the end of the year, they bill back Hudson.
okay.
So
Yeah.
basically, Julie keeps our year-to-date numbers. And then we track those with her. When I was really surprised, Chris, I couldn't find them in this ledger report. So I don't know if she gave us the wrong ledger or what.
I think it's the right stuff. It's a bit cryptic, which is why I literally because I just didn't have time to go through every line and figure that all out. So I went literally to the bills I know we've submitted. And then I can backtrack when I have a little more time and see how that plays out with what they've got. But
So maybe we should just say that you're reporting that things look good, and that maybe in the next meeting will have had time to investigate a little further.
yes, but I do think if we should be thinking about if there's anything we, is important that we, need at this point, we would be able to, we have the funds to do it. So if we needed, like I said, a new buoy, we could do that.
So I've got to, my job this week, hopefully, is to tackle the boat. I had, someone gave me some new seats for it. I don't like the color, but they're in good shape. But I need to buy some paint and stuff, and it was kind of interesting what Mike said. Maybe we should rewire the lights on our boat to match that same code. It would help us actually to have those same three codes on our boat. So I can look into doing that. Now, Chris, you said something a couple times, and Dan, I don't know if it's the right time to discuss it or not, but your resignation is effective June 30, correct?
June 30th. Yes.
That's right. So we'll get you for one more meeting at least then. Never mind. That's good. I don't want to lose you.
Echo.
Yes.
So
We'll get to that topic later, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was planning to do that as a kind of new business. So.
Yeah. So if you can, I'll look into what I need. I could absolutely spend money on the buoy and stuff, but
I mean, we don't need to spend it. I want to put it out there that we have funds. And so if there is, we're okay. If we have to do some maintenance on the boat, if
we're going to get a new motor, we're not going to put more money into this motor.
Right.
We can talk about that a little bit further down.
Yeah.
Why don't you wait till we do get to number 9? We'll talk about that there.
Okay.
And what I heard you say was that you'll get the year-to-date number verified, so we know how much we've actually spent. What Julie thinks we've spent, which is the only thing that counts.
Yes, although
I learned that the hard way over the years.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I think it's good to know what we send in, because if they play with numbers or whatever,
yes,
sometimes it doesn't not so easy to track what they've done there. So but anyway, we are good there. And on the herbicide end, we are also in good shape. So interestingly, we budgeted, forgetting about carryover, because last year we did not, I certainly did not understand all this carryover stuff. So this year we took that into
to figure it out. So
yeah, so we budgeted what we thought we were needed, literally, without thinking that we had balance, and we budgeted $30,000. And as with these payments of these invoices that we just got, we would be at 29.4. So, and that's without carryover stuff. So we're in a good place And I think then our assumptions about, the carryovers and using that next year,
So
we'll be in very good shape.
Chris, that's all good. I want to just work on terminology a tiny little bit. There's two types of money in the towns, right? There's your budget, which does
Yes,
not
which
carry
does
over
not.
unless you encumber it. And then there's money that gets approved at meeting and warrant articles. That money doesn't go away.
Correct.
So I don't like to use the word carryover on that. That's simply our warrant money. And what we always have tended to do is make sure there's enough money in the warrant accounts to pay the bills when they come in. You and I are on the same page. I'm just
Fair enough.
I'm a little bit tentative on the terminology.
Yes. And so Dan, just so that you kind of are reminded of this, our operating budget, if we spend it, good. If we don't, it goes away, period.
Yep.
But the warrant is a little different.
Right. And that actually, as I follow, makes it a little bit easier for us to keep track of the weed treatment, because you heroically, Chris, always figured out, well, how do we make sure we spend by, the end of June 30? But it actually doesn't need to be done quite so divided up that way, because it's an approved budget because it's approved, it can be at one time or another time.
It can, although you don't want to carry too much. So, for example, I don't know what it was in the way it worked in Hudson, but this year for the first time in Stow, they showed the balance in the account for warrant money. So, for example, they would show, okay, well, the Lake Boone Commission is asking for this amount of money, and they still have $30,000 or whatever. And so we don't want to carry way more than we need, because it could actually.
I think we cleaned up as we went through this. I think we did a fairly good job of cleaning that up. You did, Chris, of sort of clarifying what's carryover or what is balance remaining, and so on. And so we don't need to, walk through those details again.
Yep. All right. So yes, I will try to do a little further reconciliation on what I got from both towns, but based on everything I'm seeing, we're fine.
We're in good shape. Just get a validation from Julie. If it's in this ledger, I don't see it. But I'm not an accountant. I'm an engineer, So
yeah,
you did a nice job on it. Thank you.
Okay, so that ends that. Spring weed treatment update. So Red.
They came.
They saw, they conquered.
Right, yeah, pretty much. They treated a couple of weeks ago now, and then yesterday, Dominic went through the lake. He was doing a check to see what the status of things are before proceeding, I presume, into dicot treatments and other things. And I've not heard back from him what he found yesterday.
So Red, when we treat with sonar, the plant should turn pink.
Turn what?
What happens is the sonar inhibits photosynthesis.
Okay.
So the green turns pink.
Okay.
And I've got some growing in front of my dock, and I let it grow on purpose. I normally rake it out, but I wanted to use that as a telltale. They're all still green. They are not turning.
Really?
Right. So if you talk to Dominic, then the question is, okay, what's going on? There's some pretty healthy plants growing right in front of my boathouse, actually, and so they're still green as of this afternoon.
Is that curly leaf, Conrad?
Milfoil.
Is it milfoil? Okay. I thought I saw quite a bit in the very back basin out towards the public launch. And I asked him to specifically look at that. I didn't know whether that was invasives or non-invasives, but he said he was going to take a look at it when he was out.
Yeah, I don't go down there unless I'm in a canoe. So yeah, let us know what Dominic says, but yeah, that's they did do the update, but, and they don't do fast testing anymore. So, what's the ask Dominic what the concentration was in the lake, if he knows.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So, there's a certain number of parts per billion we're supposed to get to, but this is a new version of sonar, and I don't know as much about it.
He also did administer it earlier in the season than they have in the past.
So the trick, Dan, is they're supposed to administer it when the plants are growing. In the past, they've actually they did it at the right time this year. In the past, they did it too late. Lake temperature right now is 72 degrees.
Wow.
Yeah.
71, 72 degrees. So the plants are growing, you can see them. So I guess that's a question for Dominic, Brad.
Yeah, yeah, I got it.
So a couple of things I was wondering about on this was did we get anything from them that tells us the volume of chemicals that they use? Usually they say, X number of gallons or pounds or whatever.
Yes, he did send something along. I didn't notice actually who he sent it to. Do you want me to pass that on to you, Chris?
So make sure that gets to all three of us,
Okay.
and include Dave also. So we
Okay.
have that, because that's, and then I was trying to look through when and what they're supposed to test post-treatment. Anybody have a quick access to notice what that was?
I do not.
There was.
I see Dave Gray's here. Dave, I don't know if you follow, we're talking about the solitude treatment and the post-treatment testing. Do you know what they are supposed to test after applying the solitude?
Yeah, they test just to see if they need the booster treatments, and they would probably base it on how long it could last, how much sunlight there was, and things like that. And they need to maintain the concentration for a systemic herbicide to work.
Yeah, I thought that there was a
There are some standard tests of maybe turbidity and phosphorus levels or something, but in fact, what we worked out with Solitude is our ongoing testing that we do as part of the Healthy Lake Boone initiative provides data that enables them to have that information.
Okay.
Yes, but Dan, you don't test for fluoridone concentrations in the lake.
They are supposed to indicate either through scientific analysis of standard dissipation rates or measured rates, if it's appropriate, to make sure that there are no lingering herbicides in the lake.
So there's two pieces to that. The first piece is you have to get to a certain concentration for the herbicide to work. And that's something like 40 parts per billion. I don't know the number anymore, but it's in that vicinity. And if you don't maintain that, the herbicide will not work. And that's what the testing used to do. They used to actually test the water after they treated to find out what the concentrations were, and they had to maintain that for 30 days. And just like David said, it's a herbicide, systemic herbicide. It has to be ingested by the plant. It has to be at enough concentration to work. And so I don't know, but right now, what I see in front of my house is it's not working.
Well, I suggest that we have a follow-up since Dominic just did his follow-up observation yesterday,
Yep.
hasn't been able to produce a report, and the information you're reporting, Conray and Red. I suggest that we have a follow-up, maybe you and I, Red, with Dominic to find out the results from this most recent observation.
Okay.
Sounds
Guys,
good.
I'm willing to get involved in that if you need me.
Thanks.
Excellent. Okay. Is there anything else we need to talk about around the treatment? No. All right. Healthy Lake Boone Initiative. So recommendations. Dan, I don't know.
Yeah. So let me preface this by saying that at the last meeting, we wondered if there was some way to have a consolidated meeting so we didn't have to do the same presentation with every different group. A week ago, we had a meeting it was combined of the Stow Conservation Commission and the Hudson Conservation Commission, who are really the ruling bodies that affect any action decisions. That was, I think, a very useful format. They had some significant input, some suggestions. We didn't present them as the final recommendations. We presented them as what we're thinking makes sense, and are there any other ideas that they have. It gave them a sense of participation, and it also saved us the work of doing the presentation so many different times.
Yep.
So from that, just to remind you the process, we did all the data collection, did the analysis, and then our lead, our contractor, Rebecca Longval, who's the conservation coordinator from Bolton, who also coordinated our citizen science volunteers. She took on the responsibility of being the sort of the catch-all of what ended up being some 40 or so different alternative types of treatment and so on that we might deal with the lakeways to prevent the kind of nutrient buildup. We met with our steering committee, got input from them. We've been keeping you informed all along. And long story short, we're now in the process of actually converting those into very specific goals and action plans. So we will present those. I'll sort of present some of the key items tonight, but then we're also going to present them at the Lake Boone Association annual meeting, which comes up June 5th. So what we have here is, Chris, can you give me, let me show some slides?
Yeah, hang on.
And Dave, I'm glad you can be here to help chime in as appropriate. Kirk was here for a little while, but not here at the moment.
Yeah, you should be able to, I think.
Yep. Okay, can you confirm that you're able to see the picture of the lake with a dock and, a float and so on?
Yep.
Okay. So I want to go through this relatively quickly and get right to the chase here. What are the recommendations? But in order to do that, I need to set the stage a little bit. We're going to be doing, a more detailed thing for the Lake Boone Association. But let me just kind of go quickly. That there are four parts to this. One is a background about what is this project all about. Second is our data collection process. Third is what findings we got from that. And the fourth are the recommendations. So, and obviously this is a collaboration among many people. One thing that we realized as part of this is that, to my knowledge, the Lake Boone Commission does not have its own logo.
It's true, we don't. Well, I think, Conrad, there used to be one.
We used to have one, yeah. It was.
So we may need to figure that out to make sure we get credit here. But and of course, Lake Boone is a wonderful place. We know that. And it's a resource for the community. It's part of a larger hydrologic system. Here you can see how it flows through the dam into the Assabet River, goes on to Maynard. And it's a wildlife habitat. So the issue we're dealing with is that algae blooms are a recurring problem. This is from last fall. And you can see that's a significant bloom there. So And climate change increases that risk because of warming temperatures, the chance of more severe storms, fewer days below freezing, and so on. So all that led to our grant. And again, I'm going to walk through these quickly. So part 2 is the data collection that, over the year, we did data collection essentially to feed into the model that the Brown and Caldwell uses for analyzing lakes, of how do nutrients get into the lake, how are they released, what kind of flows in and flows out. We did also review previous studies and found some consistent inconsistencies among them, the range of the amount of phosphorus, and it was tough to use that as a basis for decision making. So we had our citizen scientists following precise protocols, and all of that led to the action, items that we're going to talk about here. We had a lot of people volunteered. The citizen science component to me was a real success, engaging people in so many ways, understanding the lake, measuring the lake. We did our data collection in some 13 different sites in all 4 basins. And really, we should say that the sites are from top to bottom, so there's some depth to that. For example, for temperature profiles that are pretty crucial in the story. We also collected data. In fact, just this weekend, we did some more data collection, including the places that inflow into the lake, Monahans Cove, out by Basin 4 and Basin 3 as well. So the monthly sampling included a well-defined set of protocols. We had special training so everybody could do all their measurements correctly. Again, I'm going to go through quickly. We had great engagement with Neshoba Regional High School students, the green team, including local resident here, Sonia, you see on the left, who was sort of our lead. We did also use a special probe, and here you see Dave using this YSI device. On his right hand is the where the readouts come, and in the left hand is the probe that's lowered. He'd go out with somebody, would put it down a certain number of feet, 5 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet, and so on, and measure some very useful measurements of, conductivity and temperature and so on. And of course, they even did that in the winter, as you see on the right there. We also took samples from shallow wells in order to understand a little bit about the substrate, the aquifers. And we took sediment cores that involved scuba divers going down to grab these samples, and they were cured over the course of several months to try to see what happens to them over time. So the part 3 of this is, yep. Does anybody have a question? No? So part 3 are the analysis and findings. Now remember, we contracted with Brown and Caldwell to do this analysis, and I'm very pleased with their work, and we're very fortunate that Kirk Westfall, who's a resident, was able to be their chief science advisor for this, and he's obviously passionate about the lake and will continue his role on a voluntary basis after the grant is over. But a lot of this involves data collection and creating hydrologic models that calculate all the inflows and outflows, also to test the eutrophication, or the amount of nutrients that can lead to poor quality lake if it goes eutrophic. So here is just one example of their model. This shows the depth of the water. The yellow line is what the model predicts based on inflows, rains, outflows, and so on after they've honed it. And the blue dots are what we actually measured. So it's quite remarkably close, and enables projections into the future, especially, for example, with climate change, if there is very little rain, or if it's warmer, more evaporation, and so on. This also led to some clearer understandings of the nature of the lake as having 2 basins. One is what feeds into Monahans Cove, and the other is what feeds into the rest of the lake. And the Monahans Cove actually ends up being an important part of the story here. But this chart, the green shows that about a quarter of it comes from Monaghan's Cove, about a quarter is from the rest of the lake, and then a half or so is about surface precipitation, coming into the lake. This breaks it down into a graphic representation of the whole. You see Monaghan's Cove, the lake basin surface inflow, the groundwater inflow, and then this is the sediment release from under the lake. Then the outflow is let's see if I'm explaining this correctly. Dave, am I saying this correctly? Is this a measurement of the water or the
No,
phosphorus?
this is actually of the phosphorus.
Yes, thank you.
This figure has incredible content to it. It just looks like kind of a bar graph to begin with, but the height of each bar is relative to the total amount of phosphorus at each location. So on the left, you're seeing the sources of the phosphorus coming from surface inflow up at the top, and then some that's coming from the groundwater. And then at the bottom, it's release from the sediment during the summer, under anaerobic conditions especially. And when that gets released in the summer, it sits in the bottom of the water column. And so you get the total amount in the middle there that sits in the water column. And of course, that's what feeds the weeds and the algae. And then how do we get rid of that phosphorus? Well, some of it flows over the dam, and some of it goes back into the sediment again during the time when the oxygen has a higher content at the bottom. So this is showing a really comprehensive view of what the nutrients are doing in the lake. So there's a lot to think about there. But that model of the sediment on the left at the bottom is what was learned from that sediment analysis by the SMAST. I'm trying to remember.
UMass Dartmouth, I believe it was.
Yeah, UMass Dartmouth. And that was a lot that we had to learn there. So this is a really important finding of the study, a great summary of it.
Yeah, and I incorrectly labeled it. Should be relative amounts of nutrients flowing in.
Yeah, specifically phosphorus.
Phosphorus. Yep. Okay. So, just some key insights we've gained. We now better understand, as Dave said, the dynamics of water flowing in and out and the nutrients. We now have accurate data and reliable models for projecting into the future. We have projections on how climate change might increase the algae growth. We've learned that we can indeed manage the lake, and ideas that we'll talk about in a moment. And that Kirk keeps on saying some of these are no pain actions, the things that you can do anyway. Keeping clean septics is a good thing, regardless of the model. But there are some very specific differences based on the nutrient-rich sediment in particular. So one point is that the lake is actually doing okay. It's not in horrendous condition. We can think of kind of like a rainbow over the lake. There's still storms there, but it's doing okay. It's at risk, but this chart, which I won't get into details because I'm not a real expert here, but the horizontal lines, the blue and green, are a normal, okay, bar where we're doing okay with concentrations of phosphorus. The going up and down is the amount of phosphorus, and to the left to right is the residence time, as it's called. And we don't have enough time to go through this in detail, and I'm not enough of an expert to do it. But this is what indicates that we're not in the bad eutrophic status that we could be. Another very important finding is, why did we get that algae in the fall, in October? Why did we get this sudden bloom? It wasn't warm water. In fact, it was actually cooling of the water that normally there's a stratification, that it's warm at the top and cool at the bottom, and the sediment, phosphorus and sediment, just kind of hangs around at the bottom. However, in the fall, when the temperatures equalize, there's this looping, this cycling of water throughout the entire column, bringing the phosphorus to the surface, and that in turn led to these big algae blooms that we saw. Dave, did I say that correctly?
Yeah, that's exactly right. When the temperature stratification during the summertime keeps the bottom unmixed. It's down there, any place below 15 feet just sits there the whole time. And then in the fall, as the surface water cools off, everything mixes and the phosphorus mixes too, and it comes up, well, it's exposed to sunlight. And so oftentimes we'd see the algae blooms beginning in the morning, just as the sun came up. It can grow pretty quickly.
The other thing that this connects with is, sure, we'll see it in the fall, but why didn't we see it so much during the summer this year? And that may be because of it was a very rainy year. Rain brings in clear water, so that we would not have, it would be the proportion of phosphorus in the lake is improved. That is better to avoid algae blooms because of it was an especially rainy year.
Yeah, but Dan, rain also brings in nutrients, so gotta be careful on that one.
My understanding is that the rain, sure, there's some, it's like runoff and so on, but, Dave, do you have a comment on that?
Well, if there's a lot of rain, it's more dilute than it would be if it was just occasional small rains. So, it's hard to tell where the trade-off is, but from Kirk's experience, he thought that the additional rain may have carried it through, and certainly it put more of it over the dam.
Yeah, what's interesting on that, guys, is our clearest years on the lake were when we didn't have any rain.
Huh. Well, we will continue to monitor with our, keeping our team active this beyond the end of the year. So another important part is that we used this rapid test to test for cyanotoxins, the harmful things in the cyanobacteria. This test actually is a really important help to our ability to keep residents safe, shall we say. The normal procedure for testing involves fairly expensive and long-term, it takes a couple of weeks or so to get results of tests sent to labs, and that's what led to our entire lake being shut down for, a month or two a couple of years ago, because we needed to get the clear indication. Well, these tests we can do when there are pockets of algae in order to see when we get the cyanotoxins there. It's not the official science lab formal test, but it is a very helpful, enables us to differentiate algae growth around the lake. And I think one more thing I want to point out is that we didn't just collect data, we built advocates. We've had dozens of people involved as volunteers, Red being a good example here, that have now really become advocates for understanding and acting with the lake. So I know time's moving on. So let me move quickly. So the long-term action plan. So first thing we need to say is that because of this engagement, we've had one big success. Halleck Point was saved. That's a major impact that happened with donations, with action and so on. Many people helped out with that. But let's sort of go by goals. The first one is to implement a whole lake approach. That is, we're not dealing with weeds separate from drawdown, separate from septic from measurements. It's all integrated. The full dynamics and everything have to be treated as an integrated whole lake approach. And that also includes coordinating across both towns and working with our external partners, like the Organization for the Assabet River. Goal 2 is to have Lake Boone Association take the lead. They certainly have done that, and Dave's been the lead representing the LBA. But I think when we first got started, it wasn't quite clear whether this should be an LBC project or an LBA project. The Lake Boone Commission has no responsibility for the health of the lake. That's either the Board of Health or the Conservation Commissions, but the Lake Boone Association can handle the kind of leadership and independent responsibilities here. So with big thanks to Dave Gray and Dave Sawerski for agreeing to take on that responsibility, continue on into the future. They also will, our advisory board will be transitioned into instead of advising the project, which ends in 2 months, will be transitioned to supporting the Lake Boone Association. They'll also manage the monitoring program and so on. Goal 3 is to continue to monitor the lake's health, now with fewer measurements, now we have a better understanding, but to do that using our defined protocols, but continue with an annual report giving our status, our progress, and so on. Goal 4 is the major piece, is to reduce the nutrients getting into the lake. One is to limit the surface runoff, and that's the lawn fertilizers, the leaves and clippings, washing cars away from the lake, and having a plant vegetative buffer, which is one of the things that's come up in the Cattell property. Second is to maintain the septic systems. You know, I think our septics are much better than they were several years ago, but, you know, pump every 2 years and use no phosphate dishwasher detergent and so on. We need to make sure we're preventing invasive weed infestations, especially as boats come in through the launch, and to just keep ourselves observing to identify invasive weeds, notifying the LBA of anything. So this is reducing nutrients. There's more we can say about it, but that's the key sort of thing we need to do. Goal 5 is to carefully monitor the algae and the toxins. And here, using those kits, having, we identified, you know, when there was a bloom, there might be a couple of big areas, but there might be, say, a dozen or so smaller pockets. And certainly people shouldn't swim when there's, you know, that active algae. But we will identify one lead person for each basin to monitor the locations and extent of the algae, and then use our low-cost testing that the LBA will be able to support. We're getting some of them from purchasing with the grant funds, but eventually the LBA will take over those costs. And then we met with the Board of Health last week to change from shutting down the entire lake when the town beach finds some cyanotoxins. All the town will do, Stow will close the town beach, but give warnings to the rest of it just to be aware. And we then, LBA that is, will continue to monitor the rest of the lake, use those tests, inform people, keep people educated, but avoid the problem of an entire lake shutdown that we had that it turns out was not, in our understanding, necessary. Goal 6 is to review the weed treatment plan. And this year we had Solitude meet with the Healthy Lake Boone Initiative team. They were integrated. They did that very well. We insisted on that, and I've been very pleased with Dominic's work in that regard. It's a real change in their relationship with us. We don't have that new plan yet, but it will be defined and implemented. Maybe the same thing, maybe something different, but that's the idea, is to have that be an integrated part of the whole plan. And goal 7 is active public communications. You can see that's a topic that came up again tonight around the wake boats and wake surfing and so on. We will create a printed brochure for all residents, brief and clear, summary of the findings and recommendations, making the point that we all need to take care of our lake. We'll do ongoing emails. We'll update the HLB website. We'll also have a special welcoming plan to inform new residents about their responsibilities for the lake. And we'll make sure we're communicating with residents, other residents of Stow, aside from those on the periphery of Lake Boone. Now, before getting into this one, I should also have said that we need to add clearly that there's an impact of the wake boats that should be its own goal as a thing that we need to handle as part of these major goals.
Dan, one question.
Yep.
As far as goals, or maybe even just in general, was there anything that came out that would direct us towards more education, communications, signage, whatever at the public launch? Like, we don't have a way to clean boats at that launch, but, is there anything that we need to do for the people who, to help mitigate issues that may come from off lake?
Yeah, and I think Dave and Red can comment on that, but we certainly, it's nice that we have a sign there, and thanks, Dave, for I think you created that sign a while back. But it's got some words in there, but I think we need to make sure that it's like in your face, it's visible, it's like clearly seen and messaged effectively, and maybe you got other ideas on how to go about that.
Yeah. It's a challenge to catch fishermen at 5 a.m. in the morning and say, be sure you have your boat cleaned before you put it in.
Right. And by the way, we don't have any way for you to clean it.
Yeah. They would have to clean it across Sudbury Road on the other side to make sure it didn't just run into the lake anyway.
Right.
So it's a tough one.
Yeah.
We can only request that people adhere to what's needed, and they should certainly know it by now. They see those signs at every boat launch ramp in the state, I'm sure.
Yep.
Other lakes control that, like Fort Meadow. The Fort Meadow public launch is manned. It's not open all the time. You can't put in all the time.
Yeah. All right, so there were 4 ideas that came up that have enough merit to warrant additional study. Each of them would have some kind of cost associated with them. The previous ones are essentially low budget. One of them deals with the phosphorus in the sediment by using alum to bind with the phosphorus and take it out of circulation, shall we say. The second is the idea of having floating islands. Now, we got a lot of boats, of course, going around, so this may not be feasible, but the plants would absorb nutrients. Think of it like a floating raft, with plants on it. Third one is on the culvert pipes that feed into the lake, to have there's some sock devices that can go on the end that are able to somehow limit the nutrients getting into the lake. And fourth is one, I know, Conrad, you've mentioned the idea of having aerators, and we've tried some of that near Monans Cove, which help oxygenate the lake. Each of these will study further before we recommend, having expenses, trying to get it into some kind of budget for any of those. I want to check in with Dave. Did I accurately describe? You're a better scientist here than I am on this.
No, I think you're right. The first one on alum, I wouldn't say it reduces the phosphorus. It reduces the release of phosphorus from the sediment.
Okay.
It's still down there. That's one of the limitations. But it's bound more securely, as you said.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a lot to learn about these different techniques here. Certainly the floating islands and the sock devices are relatively new, and the floating islands have been used in the Charles River.
Where? Not on the lower river.
No, I think it's further up. I read an article about it, and I can't remember just where they were located.
Okay, a couple of quick more slides.
And did anybody talk about dredging to remove the sediment completely?
There was talk about that, but the different problems with that is like you're stirring up more toxic stuff that's in there, and also what do you do with the product?
Yeah,
and it's very expensive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
familiar with it. I'm just curious if it was brought up.
Yep.
So there are a couple of special projects that have come up. We mentioned one, which of course this slide, the image I keep on repeating because it's so beautiful and I didn't have time to put in different ones for each of these. But this, to the right of this is the Cattell property that is now sort of referred to as Old Colony Road. That, or is it Old County Road?
Old County.
Old County Road. That they're thinking of putting some 23 or so homes on what was Alan Cattell's property. We've been very active in giving feedback to the developers and coordinating with the Hudson zoning board, the Hudson Concom, about how to limit the direct impact on the very sensitive Fourth Basin. We've achieved a commitment to keep the shoreline as a no disturb buffer of some 50 feet or so. They're agreed to having no docks in the Fourth Basin because it just can't handle that. We're trying to make sure they have adequate septic systems. It's a process still, in discussions and still, ongoing. It's now in the developer's hands to provide more details, but that's one we have to pay careful attention to. The other special.
Dan, I would say in addition to that, the LBA has been funding legal consulting services as well, which gives us a lot more credibility with the Conservation Commission of Hudson.
Good point. Thank you. And then the last special project is that, of course, the dam is going to go through some major repairs. The town of Stow approved $300,000 to continue the in-depth technical study, trying to sort of hold off on having the full cost that could be in a few $1,000,000. But we've already seen that serious problem we had on the side of the weir last year. Conray helped in patrolling around the lake during that. And Dave helped with that. It was an impressive effort from the town. But that work will in fact help us with our lake monitoring and help with the drawdown if they put in a different kind of a system to control more controlled drawdown and fill up again. It also may have a lower level. We can bring it down if that weir is lowered, but that's a project we're going to have to pay attention to for a while. But I think we can say that I'll kind of wrap up here that also I think is another example of how to get the problem that happened last year dealt with within 24 hours, bringing in the town, the police, the fire department, the Lake Boone Commission, the Conservation Commission, the town administrator, and they used the data that we collected on the flow rates in order to more effectively manage this. So I think it's an example of where we want to go with the lake. So thank you for bearing with me as I rambled through all of this stuff. I'll stop now, see if you have any questions, but this is essentially the presentation we'll do to the Lake Boone Association. But I wanted to at least run it by you, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this.
I think it's an excellent summary of a ton of work. So great job.
Well, on behalf of all the people involved, thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Any other comments or questions on, ideas or things that haven't come up yet? I mean, clearly today came up this whole business of the impact of high power boats and the wakes and so on. And that's an issue we need to make sure we include in this. But anything else?
Well, a couple of them, Dan. First of all, boats also help because they oxidate the water. So if you ever look at behind the boat, you'll see all those bubbles that the boats create. But the other issue is drawdown. If we could take the lake down further, then residents could, remove some of the leaves and stuff that are on the shoreline that get, they can't remove because they're in 2 feet of water. So I know I'd love to see that happen for my property. I'd love to be able to rake out the shallows in front of my house, but I can't because it doesn't draw down enough. So a deeper drawdown is something that would be really interesting to pursue.
There's
Hot
something else
potato
going.
years ago, Connie?
I can tell you all about the issues around that, and it's mainly wells. Yeah, we can talk about that in depth if you'd like to, because we wanted to do a deeper drawdown until we found that we couldn't because of the dam.
There's
Yeah.
something else that may be coming up in the future that we have to really start paying attention to. I was just over on the Conservation Commission meeting. Dave Gray was over there too, and the Fire Academy is actually studying. They hired someone to study the hydraulics from the White Pond area reservoir there and Lake Boone. So for a year, they're going to study the different heights of the two ponds together. And so that's in relation to the PFAS that they're studying. So if, as Connie pointed out, you and I had a conversation one time about when the lake gets drawn down, you can see that White Pond is drawing down too.
Yeah.
And you can, obviously with the soil in this area, you know that water's just filtering through it. So we're going to have an issue with PFAS coming into this lake.
What's
I'm
PFAS?
sure.
Dave, what's PFAS?
The forever chemicals there, the stuff that is in the spray foam in the Fire Academy,
Oh, okay.
and also other things, but that's kind of where it's coming from, we think. I haven't heard, I kind of wanted to ask a few more questions there, but I'll check in with Kathy and see what she knows about what testing's been done and what they've found so far.
Yeah, they did testing a year ago, I think. They tested the dam outfall. They tested water coming through the culvert into the fourth basin. One other location, I can't recall just where it was, but they also tested White Pond. And there were traces of it in all locations. Pretty low, but they're going to look at it to see if it's increasing, because it's certainly a high concentration near the firefighting academy. It's in all the firefighting foam that they use, or it was.
So one,
Well,
Dan, can you distribute those slides to the commission members at least?
sure. What I'd like to do is clean up the errors that we identified here and then pass along the slides to you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Great.
Well, thank you for taking so much of the agenda time on this, but I thought it was, at this point, useful for you to see, what we're finding in this study.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. All right.
Nice work, guys.
Yes.
And,
All right. Next.
Chris, one quick comment on that, though. We did all this to a much lesser extent years ago, and it's amazing how similar the recommendations are to what we did 20 years ago. Almost exactly the same set of recommendations, which is actually good. I mean, I like what I see.
Yeah, in some ways you could say, well, every recommendation you make is a good idea. We could have just thought of it. But I think there are some key things that have come out that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. One is just a deeper understanding of the true dynamics of the lake, including especially the inflows, the outflows, and the role of sediment. We also have identified very specific problems like in Monaghan's Cove, this very high salinity and conductivity that Dave noticed, that we ended up tracking down to the blank industries that they have road salt that had been getting into Monaghan's Cove, then into the lake, that we hadn't noticed that before. And so, there are a few specific things like that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
No, it's good data. It really is. So, that's why we put all the catch basins in. We were trying to filter the water before it gets to the lake.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I don't think they're maintained as well as they could, and I know some of them don't work as well as they could, but, you know, good job, thank you. We can talk about that more later if you'd like.
Right. So that takes us to our next agenda item, which is some of the kind of the season prep stuff. So boat, motor replacement, buoys, any other prep. So maybe we've talked a little bit already about boat, but so Conray, do you need any help with kind of getting it unwrapped and ready to go in, or?
Oh, yeah, help is always appreciated. So the process to put the boat back in the water is, you know, I'll take the shrink wrap off, and then it needs a good cleaning. The old seats have got to come out. When the old seats are out, we should really repaint the floor. Dave Zareski helped me replace that floor quite a few years ago now already, David. So yeah, it needs a little work. In terms of the motor itself, since it appears that we have money to buy a motor as of July 1, we need to talk about the process to procure that. I have been told, in Hudson at least, that if a procurement is less than 10,000, we don't have to go through an extensive bid process. And I don't know if that's true in Stow as well, but if it is true, then, you know, basically it's up to us to just go figure out how to buy a motor. And I've already done a little bit of work on that. Buoys are in, except for the one that goes in the third basin. It's ready to go in. I just haven't got as far as putting it back in the water. I put the new light on it yesterday. And if it hadn't been white caps out there today, I might have put it in the water, but I don't know where you guys are, but there were white caps in the most of the day.
It was like the friggin' ocean today.
Yeah. You know, especially where you live with, they come down the lake and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, they're worse than any boat wakes from what I see. But anyway, there was too rough out there to do much today. So tomorrow I'll probably get that last buoy in. It's ready to go in. I just got to take it over there. And then so that means all the buoys in is, to my knowledge, and I haven't gone out at night to check it. I think all the lights are working. The good news is most people tell me when they don't work. So as far as I know, all of them are working. That's like 7 buoys. So that part is good. And based on what we talked about budgets, I'll probably stock a few replacements, 1 buoy and a couple lights. The lights are expensive, but they work. You buy the good ones, they last. So you know, that's that, and I don't know what else there is. You know, if you wanna, I'll handle getting the motor replaced. We can talk about that later on. I guess we have, I forget what the number in the budget was, but it was less than 10 grand. It was like 9,000 that we budgeted.
I have to look at that. I've forgotten what we
Yeah,
specifically
me
did.
too. Me too, but it got approved in both towns.
8,000. We put in 8,000, Conway, as a
Okay.
line item when we were doing the planning.
So the real trick with the motor is going to be finding some people that have them. It's like everything else right now. You know, it's hard to find stuff.
Yeah.
But I talked to there's one mariner I use that's actually in Danvers, and he does a lot of municipal boats, and he had motors. So I'll talk to him again. And I'll talk to the two local suppliers too, but PJ doesn't, they don't stock any motors, so he's probably not gonna work. And Cabela's, I don't know, I'll check with Cabela's. So.
Do I assume that electric motors for boats just aren't
No,
viable?
Electric stuff in general, it's a little bit of a scam. Because people don't look at the life cycle of electric stuff. They only look at, hey, there's no emission, but you got to produce that stuff and you got to dispose of that stuff, etc. But and for the boats right now, no, they're not viable, not for a patrol boat. electric trolling motors are fine. I tried electrics, and now there's some better electrics now. I mean, I have a pontoon boat that when it was new was electric. It was a nightmare. I eventually had to strip it all out and switch to a gas motor. The technology is getting there, but it would also be very expensive and very heavy. David.
Yeah, I was going to say this might be an opportunity for the LBC to set an example for the lake by getting at least a low horsepower motor. I don't think you need more than a 35 or a 50 to move that thing across the lake in 2 minutes. So, when people start putting 100 horsepower motors on the back of boats, it's just crazy for a lake this size.
Well, yes and no. That particular boat is designed for our patrol boat is designed for a 90 horse engine. We've been running a 60 horse 4-stroke on it. With a 60 horse 4-stroke, our maximum speed is about 22 miles an hour. So our boat is currently underpowered.
You don't have to go far.
No, we don't. But you get into another issue, David, and that's it's a little bit complicated, but it's got talked about thrust. When you're trying to control around a dock, a boat, you need a certain amount of thrust to make it happen, which comes with your horsepower and the diameter of the propeller or the pitch of the propeller. So all that stuff comes together on how a boat actually performs. So I wouldn't want to put much smaller motor on that. You could, but it would make a nightmare to drive it because maneuverability would just be gone. Even right now with the 60 on in a windy day, it's hard to keep that boat where you want it because it's got a huge wind shadow. It's a light boat. It's hard. I can dock my 30 footer easier than I can dock this 21 footer. But yeah, we've already looked at that a little bit.
Yeah, I dock our sailboat with an electric motor in a wind.
Yeah.
You have to plan ahead.
Yeah. With the sail up or the sail down?
With the sail down, just on the motor.
Try it with a sail up and see how successful you are.
Well, I do that. I do that too.
Yeah. I understand, Dave. I've been boating all my life. I know the issues. I had my first boat when I was 6 years old. But anyways, yeah, I'd love to be able to, if electrics would work, but they don't yet.
Okay. So just one kind of thing. You said you've already checked in with Hudson about the procurement process. Do we need to touch base with Stow to see if there's anything?
So this gets into the interesting, this gets kind of interesting because of what we are. We're neither Hudson nor Stow. So, but I like to at least check in with the towns. That's why I checked with Hudson. And I think that under 10K is a state issue. It's not a town issue. That you don't have to go out and bid for small, what they consider a small number. If you want to ask Denise, would probably be a good idea.
All right, I'll drop her a note, see.
Yeah. I think it's a state issue, Chris, but I don't know.
Yep.
So it'll be good to verify it, because if all we got to do is get a couple of bids, I'd still like to talk to a couple of dealers. I don't want to just do one. But the other issue is getting a dealer that might take the existing motor and trade. Because what you really want to do is you want to take the boat to the dealer, you want to have them rig it, put new controls on it, and give it back to you.
Yeah.
So.
All right, I'll ping Denise just to see if there's any procurement restrictions or processes we have to go through.
And the other issue is, I've been involved over the years in a few situations where you have I'll use the word quote emergency call. And you got to get from A to B quickly. If there's a problem, in basin 1 and the boat's in basin 2, it takes a while to get down there. So you can't have a boat that's only gonna do 2 miles an hour. You gotta be able to get up and go. It's the same thing with the the police boat. You gotta get up and go sometimes for situations. Especially.
You know that when I talked with Mike a month ago about the boat, the police boat, he was looking at a 60 horsepower for something or another.
That boat is waterlogged. It weighs a ton.
Yeah, I'm just telling you what he said.
Yeah, and
So.
he should be looking at a 90. Because if you put a 60 on that boat, it's going to be really a dog. Get into these safety issues, you know. I mean, if there's a problem and you got to get there, you got to get there.
Okay. So I will ping Denise. You'll reach out if there's something you need some help with on the work on the boat.
Yeah, maybe we can have a work party. I'll get the boat moved and I'll get the cover off it this week.
Yeah.
I'd really like to do a little painting inside the boat before we put it back in the water.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Dan, anything else in this topic you wanna go through?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So, old business. I didn't have any old business. I'm sure we have lots of old business, but
I just wanted to note that I did submit the annual report to the clerks.
yeah.
I think I made the same mistake last year, sending it to the Conservation Commissions. You caught that. So I did send it to the clerks instead, but they now have that.
Okay, the archive.
Yep.
Yeah. Perfect. I saw that went out. Thank you that was a very comprehensive list. So for purpose of clarification, every year we have to provide all of our meeting agendas, minutes, and official documents that are part of the work we've done over the year. So it's no small feat pulling all that together. So thank you, Dan. All righty. So new business. So a couple of things on new business. So first of all, I think people here know, maybe not everybody. So I did turn in my resignation from the LBC effective the end of June. So finishing out this fiscal year. So that has been received by the town of Stow. And I think they will post the opening sometime, probably relatively soon. I saw that Linda was starting to think through that. So so if you know of anyone who might be interested, they may be able to just serve a year, because I have 1 year left in my 3-year term. So it maybe they'll be looking for someone for a year to keep things on cycle. So it's a nice way to just sort of enter and get your feet wet. So if anyone is interested, please, that will get posted. You can talk to any of us as commissioners if you had questions, or certainly it is something that goes through the Stow selectmen for decision making.
Well, Chris, we can't let you go by saying that without appreciating the tremendous amount of work you've done, what you've done to bring sort of some good order to our meetings, handling the budget, dealing with all kinds of issues. And I really wish you weren't leaving, but we have to honor your request. But just to, I'm sure we'll have other opportunities to acknowledge and appreciate. But thank you for all that you've done.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You guys have been great to work with. So I appreciate the team we have built.
You didn't ask us if we'd let you go.
What's that?
You didn't ask us if we'd let you go.
No, I did not. There was no vote. There was no motion. No vote. No nothing. Nope.
Did we outvote her, Conrad?
I don't know, but Dan, we'll have to figure out how to proceed in the interim.
Yeah.
Already talked to Chris about it a little bit.
Yeah, and And I will certainly, over the next week or two, be thinking through, what to, make sure you guys have in hand, kind of updated information like on the calendar and contacts and all of that stuff that, you probably know, but it's easier if it's written down. So,
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. Especially the calendar you created. That's very valuable.
yeah.
A lot of what you've done is valuable, believe me, but, so you will be missed.
Thank you very much.
And we do need to make sure that, on the Stow side, that we do everything we can to recruit somebody, of your caliber to take your place. I'll add one other metric of your success. I believe, at least since I've been on, every single vote was unanimous. And that wasn't always the case in the past. And I think it's a pretty clear metric of your leadership that you were able to achieve that.
Or I just wear you guys down. No, thank you. I appreciate it.
And if it's possible, we can't put this as a requirement, but if we had a woman taking your place, so it's not just 3 white men doing this, I think I would like to encourage any of the women living on the lake who want to join to participate.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, like I said, you will be missed. As everybody down knows, the balancing act on the lake is tough. There's so many interests, and they're not all congruent. So we have to balance that, and it's not easy.
Yep. Alrighty, so I'm just kind of go through a couple of other things on new business. What came up today around the request for a no wake buoy going into the cove. So I don't, that's something maybe worth talking about in the next meeting. I don't know if we kind of want to.
I'll add on to that I was walking around the lake, saw Cindy Curley, and she also wondered about whether perhaps at the first basin side of the Narrows to have another buoy. She had some specific locations that she might recommend, but I think, if we're talking about the importance of communications and having people who just come onto the lake, whatever messages we can give about safe operations, reducing speed, especially in narrow places and so on. Buoys are one of our tools. So I would encourage it to be a topic.
So years ago, we had a safety commission we created, and that was one of the big topics. And the results of that basically were the buoys that we have right now. And one of the recommendations that came out of that is we don't want to ring the lake with buoys.
Sorry, say that again, Conrad. You don't want to what?
Ring the lake with buoys. Because what you run into is everybody wants a buoy in front of their house. And so, the result of that particular effort, which is a long time ago now, was pretty much the buoys that we have. The other result is if they really want a buoy, they should put it in writing and make a request. Not just a verbal request in a public comment. So I don't think that we're obligated to respond to just a public. In the past, we've always responded to written requests. So I don't know about that, but we can think about that.
Well, I think, let's at least have it as a topic for the agenda, perhaps at our next meeting, and consider. I mean, there are pluses and minuses, as you know, Conrad, but clearly with a couple of people mentioning it, I think it's something that warrants our attention.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that any decision has to be made in that meeting. In other words, it's, an opportunity to get additional feedback, have some discussion about what might be criteria, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that a decision would be made.
Yep. Been there, done that on that one, that's all.
Yeah.
When the board considers a topic, can they just go off by themselves and hash it out, or does it have to be done in a public forum?
Unless you
Yeah.
declare an executive meeting, it's a public forum. The board has the ability to declare an executive meeting, which the public would not be part of. But that's rare, but it can be done. But for the most part, it's public.
Yeah, I think executive sessions are basically around personnel issues or legal issues. We can't just decide, oh, we want to, you don't want to talk about buoys in front of anybody else. But kind of the other answer to your question, Red, is that because we're a commission of three, not even two of us can kind of sit down with each other to work on something which is considered, deliberating or developing information for the commission. But there's nothing to prevent one commissioner and other public, members of the public, et cetera, from doing fact finding, coming up with ideas, helping identify what the criteria might be for something. Any of that can happen. It just, the commission itself can't meet offline.
So Chris, there's something I've been remiss on checking on, and I should have. Did we submit our rule changes to the state for approval?
Well, I guess
Our bylaws
the bylaws.
or rules?
The
Yeah.
regulations that pertain to voting have to be approved by the, basically the Environmental Police Commissioner. And
So
I don't know if we did that.
went to the environmental police, but now there was not like an approval process.
There used to be. I just don't remember what happened there. I was wondering about it the other day.
Yeah, I mean, it went to town meetings.
Yeah.
Because it is part of, unfortunately, it literally is part of the Stow police bylaws. So that was one of the complications there, but
yeah, I don't know. I don't even know how to look into that one.
there was no state, like when you say state, like who at the state, like you're talking about the legislature?
I'll see if I can dig out the old approvals. I think they're in the stuff I gave you, actually. Under the current,
PO?
I believe it's environmental police, whoever manages that. But, and I don't even know if it's a requirement anymore. It was in the way back times. Because I've got, and actually I gave them to you, you've got letters from the state approving our rule changes. So, and I don't know who did them now, but anyway, I was just curious about that. I forgot all about it.
Yeah, no, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I know literally went to the state for approval, that there was no step in our process at that point.
Yeah, it's a Great Pond problem. So I don't know. Anyway, but just one of those things that, when you all of a sudden your brain goes, did this happen? And you go, oh. So anyways, yeah.
All right. Well, anything else on new business? Not.
Well, yeah, one for, you're talking about for next agenda?
Yes, a next agenda anyhow.
A
Yep.
next agenda. Okay, well, yeah, we ought to put on how we're going to proceed without you. So
Right.
that's probably going to be, because for a while it's going to be Dan and I, because we won't get a new person probably till, I don't know how long that process goes in Stow, but it's certainly not instantaneous.
Yep.
So we won't have a third member for a little while.
Okay.
Chris, have you heard anything from the select board about their timing?
I have not heard anything from the select board. The only thing I saw was Linda Hathaway's notation that it was, kind of, she was approving it for being posted or whatever. So.
Anything else? If not, I'd make a motion to adjourn.
Well, do we want to set a next meeting before we adjourn?
Good idea.
So I would say, because again, it's the end of the fiscal year, if there's any outstanding bills, we've got to get those in. And so I would say sometime in at least probably mid-June, it would make sense.
So what I would recommend is 2 meetings in June. One early in June and one. So June 1st, we changed fizz years, but we've got a week to be able to submit. We actually have 2 weeks to be able to submit bills. So we should meet, the last week in June to tie up any end of the year stuff. And a quick meeting early in June might be useful in case there's other stuff that hasn't come up.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to have 2 meetings before Chris leaves. I'll mention that I am out of pocket that from June 5th through 13th. So, maybe mid and end of June are good dates, like maybe the 20, if we look at Tuesday, the 28th of June, and maybe Tuesday, the 14th of June.
I can do both those dates. The 28th could be a short meeting. It could just basically be cleaning up any financial issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I might have a problem with the 28th.
Want to suggest a different day?
I should be, I might be back on the 28th, but I might not be back until the 29th.
Would is Monday the 27th possible?
No, because I'm gonna be in Pennsylvania.
29th or 30th, Chris, both work for me.
And for me?
All we really want those for is any year-end bills that have to be approved.
Maybe 29th. Okay.
But
And you're not sure yet, Chris, if you'd be back on the 29th?
Oh, no, 29th I'd be back. I'm just not sure about the 28th.
Well, why don't we say the 14th and the 29th?
Does that work, Conway?
Works for me.
Okay, 14th and the 29th.
And the 29th would basically be a simple agenda.
Yeah. Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that passed. All right. Don't know what's happening, but go Celtics.
Yeah.
Don't tell me. If you know, don't tell me.
I don't
You
know.
guys are-
I'm recording.
No spoiler alerts here.
No spoilers. All right. Thank you all. Have a good rest of your evening.
You guys earned your overtime tonight.
Yes.
So
Yes.
did you. We're hanging in there.
Good night now.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.